What is up, football fans? My name is Watson, and welcome to the inaugural episode of The Extra Point. I'm here with my friend Cody. We are starting this podcast together. It's going to be both a video and an audio podcast, so you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere where you get your video or audio podcasts. And we're going to be talking all things NFL. So whether it is betting, it might be the previous week's results, future week predictions, or special segments that we put in any given week. We hope that you enjoy it, and we hope that eventually we can get to the point where we take your questions, but given at the current moment we have 0 subscribers, we're going to work on that.
Yeah.
So to start it off, just a little bit of background about ourselves. We're both university students. My favorite team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately. It has been a wild ride with famous Jameis over the last few years. But we're trying to tough it out, and with Coach Bruce Arians in the fold, I'm hoping that things turn around sooner rather than later. Cody.
I'm also hoping for a turnaround. I'm a Bears fan, so we're known for not being able to kick and not having an offense. We do have a good defense, but when they're always on the field, kind of can't do much. So, yeah, being a Bears fan is a little tough right now. Several straight losses, but what can you do?
Well, we're also going to be here to talk about the other teams in the NFL, which hopefully we might spend more time on. But we're going to start this podcast off by talking about the previous week's results. And Cody, them Bears.
Well, yeah, sorry to burst your bubble, but I'm not talking about a different team. I'm going to talk about my team that, just looking at here, had 9 total yards, one of which was passing in the entire first half. That is terrible. That is absolutely unacceptable from an NFL team, regardless of how good the other team's defense is. When you don't get enough total yards in the entire first half to get a first down, get off the field. Like, as a Bears fan, I have tried to support Mitch Trubisky. I have tried to support Matt Nagy. Last year was looking great, but Mitch can't look past his primary read. We do just runs up the one gap constantly. Matt Nagy's play calling has been stale. And in Chicago right now, it's nothing but finger pointing.
And I think what kind of just adds to it, I'm sorry to just pile it on here.
I'm a Bears fan. I've taken it forever.
It was Philadelphia's defense. Like, yes, their run defense is pretty good. I mean, Fletcher Cox is old. They can still hold down the middle. They got a couple of good edge rushers. But they have literally nobody in their secondary besides Malcolm Jenkins. Like, just don't aim at Malcolm Jenkins.
Maddox is pretty good, too.
Maddox is okay. But, if you're the Bears, you have some speed. You got Tariq Cohen, Taylor Gabriel. I'm sure at some point, while Mitch was looking at his primary read over here, you have Taylor Gabriel just, circling around wide open over there and, waving his arms, doing jumping jacks or something.
Yeah, but you brought up Tariq Cohen, and Matt Nagy used him as that gadget player last year, and this year there's nothing. He's on punt returns, and he always tries to return when he should just call a fair catch and ends up losing yards. Running, it's always a screen to him where he barely manages to get positive yardage. And it's just, it's very frustrating when we have the team that we had last year, and you should really only get better. But as I've told many people, the only person I've seen not regress is Allen Robinson. Everybody else on the team has regressed. No one has gotten better from last season to now. And something else about playing against Philadelphia, it was apparent that Akeem Hicks is a bigger part of that defense than most people thought. Everyone looks at Khalil Mack, and everybody looks at Eddie Jackson in our secondary. But without Akeem Hicks in the middle of that pass rush, our runs up the one gap don't work. Other teams' runs up the one gap kill us every time.
Yeah, and I mean, interior linemen often get overlooked because, as a defender, you always love, as a fan of defense and defenders, your favorite players are the edge rushers. Your favorite players are, the cornerbacks and those less flashy positions like the middle linebacker. I think Luke Kuechly should get way more credit than he gets. And even the interior tackles, like you said, Akeem Hicks, even flip it over, Fletcher Cox. Yeah, he's on the grandfatherly side now, but when he was younger...
He can still play football.
And I think, they don't get enough credit. It's funny you bring up the Bears and how everybody's regressed. I kind of find the Bears very similar to a team on the other conference, the Cleveland Browns. Because I feel both of those
I can
teams,
see that.
yeah, both of those teams came into this season highly tooted. Like, everybody was talking about Cleveland, Chicago, they're on the rise, look for a Super Bowl matchup, and nothing's really gone right.
That's actually a good segue into my next takeaway from this past week was the Browns. They aren't as good as everybody thinks they should be. When in I believe it was the second quarter alone, the second quarter, they had 4 field goals. Finish a drive, and you'll beat the Broncos. Like, before the season, you were a Super Bowl contender, and you can't even beat the Broncos with a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have Odell in fantasy. I'm hating watching the Browns.
Yeah.
I keep betting on the Browns, and I'm avoiding them at all costs now. I'm playing Odell only because I don't have anybody else. But just finish a drive. Like, I feel like once they get into the opposition's half of the field, Baker his mindset completely changes, and he doesn't make those 4 sure passes. It's always those risky jump balls because you've got Odell and Jarvis Landry catching, so you want those acrobatic plays. But I think they're not needed. Move the sticks, get into the end zone.
I kind of think it's a little bit of Jameis Winston syndrome. You know, Bruce said a couple of weeks ago about Jameis that he tries to do too much, and you see Baker step up in the pocket sometimes, and he looks down the field, and there is a check down running back just chilling about 5 yards away from him, but Baker goes, I see Jarvis Landry sandwiched between 2 defenders on the sideline. Wouldn't it be really cool if I could get the ball 15 yards downfield?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that little bit of a celebrity mindset plays in his head because he was considered such a, big factor in the renaissance of the Browns last year.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about this game, I actually wanted to talk about the Broncos for a second because I watched a bit of the game and then I watched back and looked at the highlights. The Broncos may not be as bad of a team as we originally thought. And the only reason I'm going to say this is when you put a quarterback back there that is not a plank of wood vertically stuck in the ground, all of a sudden plays are starting to be made.
Yep.
And playmakers like first-rounder Noah Fant, who I've been high on for weeks now, turn into 100-yard receivers when they're given time to get open. I saw Brandon Allen, they used a ton of play action in that game. To Phillip Lindsay, to Royce Freeman. I love those 2 guys, a little bit of speed, a little bit of boom.
Yeah.
And then Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant.
Cortland Sutton is a good receiver. Very good.
Very good, yeah. Talented, athletic.
Mm-hmm. Like, for me, the Broncos, I'm not sold on them quite yet. No. They have shown signs of promise. As a Bears fan, their head coach, Vic Fangio, he was in charge of our defense last year. And that's why we were, I believe, the top defense in the league in at least some categories.
Yeah.
So their defense, especially with Von Miller, is set with that head coach. And like you're pointing out, their offense is starting to show those signs of promise. So when you have, look at George Kittle in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
No one knew who he was, and now everybody knows who he was.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to see a very similar story with Noah Fant.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like you said, I don't think we should run into they're going to take the second wild card kind of thing. But all I'm saying is...
Yeah, they're 3-6.
Yeah, but it's funny when you take a different quarterback and you put him back there. All I'm saying is the Broncos might not be as far away from competing as we thought they are. I think if you take the shell of that team right now, you have a great draft. You could see a 500 team next year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other game that I kind of wanted to talk about, speaking of 500 teams and then flipping it around to teams who have been on a hot streak and then absolutely just fading away. What on earth happened to Green Bay? What on earth happened there? Because I tuned in, and I think it was 9 or 12-0 at that point for the Chargers. And don't get me wrong, the 9 or 12 wasn't bothering me. It was the 0 on the other side of the board that was bothering me.
As a Bears fan, I can watch that game every day. Every day.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where I almost feel like Aaron Rodgers was trying to do, be a little bit too much of a superhero again, but he was dropping like 6 steps back in the pocket. And when you're facing a pass rush with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, that's the other guy, right? Coming around the edges, you can't afford to take 6 steps back because if they're rushing around the sides, it almost looks like a pincer movement. They are going to be at the 6 step back mark. You flip the script, you watch Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers takes 2 steps, dump off. 2 steps, dump off. Sure, it leads to field goals. But in a 12-0 game, do you have the 12 or do you have the L?
Well, and that's like, as a Bears fan, I've watched a number of Packers games with Aaron Rodgers, and he always has forever to throw. So when you have the pass rush that the Chargers do, it puts Rodgers in an unfamiliar environment, and like you're losing 12-0. That's LA getting a field goal, so your defense is doing their job. They're bending, but they're not breaking.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do your job. And if Aaron Rodgers is as clutch and as talented as everybody thinks he is and says he is, you shouldn't throw up a goose egg.
No.
Against the Chargers. Like, the Chargers do have talent, but they've been kind of sloppy, and in games they should have won, they don't. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that the Chargers actually showed up at a game, but it surprises me that Green Bay's offense didn't. When you have Aaron Rodgers, who he is talented, you have Aaron Jones. The receiving core is a little all over the place right now because it's a bunch of no-name guys that you're learning their names, but their offense is in some games coming together, but as you see in the Chargers game, they're not fully there yet. Next year, I believe Green Bay's offense, with their team chemistry, it's going to be scary as a Bears fan.
Yeah. Both those divisions, though, of the teams that played are about to get interesting because they're trending in opposite directions right now.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your division, right? So the Chicago division, the NFC North, Green Bay, sure, they're I think they're 7-2 now or something like that.
7-2. The Vikings were 6-2.
So 6-3.
6-3 now. The Bears.
Yeah.
And then there's the Lions.
Yeah, we're 3-4-1, and honestly, it's funny. The Lions remind me so much of Green Bay about 3 or 4 years ago, and the reason that I say that is they've got a gunslinger of a quarterback. They have a couple of real tall, very fast receivers, and absolutely zero running game whatsoever. And I'm going back to the time when the Packers had like Jordy Nelson on one side,
Randall Cobb on the other.
Or even if you push that back even further, you get to the Greg Jennings, Donald Driver days.
Yeah.
Right? And now you look at Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, and I draw similarities with that. But then every time, like, the reason I think the Lions keep not closing games out is no one wants to stack the box. They know they're not going to hand it off.
Yeah.
With Kerryon Johnson gone, they had a backfield committee 2 weeks ago of 4 running backs.
Yeah, I feel like once Detroit's backfield can stay healthy, they are going to be scary. And not to be selfish and keep relating it back to me, but when you have the powerful Packers, the powerful Vikings, and the soon-to-be scary Lions, Bears are in trouble.
I think, again, with your team, though, we just talked about the Broncos and the switch at quarterback of what it did them. And I know you also are not a huge fan of Mitch. If you take Mitch out of the equation, you draft somebody else, you make a trade for, I don't know, it's probably not going to happen because Teddy Bridgewater loves New Orleans and he's staying there. But should it turn into a Teddy Bridge situation, you get anybody else behind that offensive line, I would be curious to see how they do.
I think we are. It's hard to say guaranteed in the NFL, but I think we'd be a guaranteed playoff team.
Yeah.
When you have the defense that we do, and they're not always on the field, and you have someone who can take command of the offense and actually call an audible and look past their primary read, we would do well. People think that Chicago does not have any receivers. Allen Robinson, everyone knows who he is. Taylor Gabriel can catch a football. Anthony Miller can catch a football. If we use Tariq Cohen properly, he was leading our team in receiving last year.
Yeah.
Like, you have David Montgomery. He takes over the role that Jordan Howard had as a bell cow running back. Let him slam it up the offensive line.
Yeah.
Tariq Cohen should be those gadget plays, runs to the outside. You throw a couple wildcat formations in there like we saw last year. We have not seen very many trick plays. I think I can only recall one this year.
Yeah.
like I said, our offense is just it's very stale.
It's funny you talk about trick plays because this is not necessarily a trick play, but when Sean McVay brought in the jet sweep offense into St. Louis with that receiver running around the back, I was just taking a look this morning, running through a whole bunch of highlights of games. I think in every single game I saw, every team ran either a jet sweep or a fake jet sweep once or twice in the game. And it's just the amount of movement that you're starting to see on the offense. Obviously, you can only move one player prior to the snap.
Yeah.
But that ability not only to move them across, not necessarily on a handoff, that makes the biggest difference. But it's the ability of that receiver to move a defender, identify the man or the zone D, and then have them already accelerating as they move across the formation. It's creating a lot of very interesting situations.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just curious if that's the kind of thing that McVay brings. What other, kind of gadgety ideas are going to come up? And speaking of gadgety, I think Lamar Jackson is a cheat code. I don't think he should be allowed to play anymore because that man has a 3-person backfield in a double tight end formation and somehow gets first downs every time. Like, I don't understand.
He's a freak athlete. And you saw just how good he was against the Patriots. Not Michael Vick. Lamar Jackson is the modern day Michael Vick.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love to see quarterbacks run the ball. You see it all the time in college. You almost never see it in the NFL.
No, yeah. I mean, you're starting to see a little bit more of it with guys like Lamar, with guys like Kyler Murray coming up. But the thing that bugs me about Lamar Jackson is just his sheer escapability. Like, he could be dead to rights in the back of the pocket and somehow find a way out. And to be honest with you, if an injury happens to him at any point in the next few weeks, that entire Ravens offense is doomed.
Yeah.
Because there are so many times when the play breaks down and they don't execute properly and he bails them out.
Yeah. And not even close to Lamar Jackson. But we saw it a couple years ago with the Raiders when they made the playoffs. Derek Carr got hurt just before the playoffs, and then they got smoked.
Yeah.
Like, without that quarterback running your offense that you've been used to and now depend on, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the last week. Maybe we can shuffle forward and chit-chat about things that we like in the upcoming week. This might be a good segment to start talking about sports betting, too. We are both casual degenerates in the way that we have a few dollars in our Bet365 account we like to throw around. Please be advised that all takes on this podcast are not meant to be assured things.
Do your own research.
Do your own research, yeah. So, Cody, what kind of game intrigues you from a playing standpoint or from a betting standpoint?
So from both a playing and a betting standpoint, I know I've been stuck on the same couple teams, but I'm back to the Cleveland Browns. They're 2-6. They're against the 6-2 Buffalo Bills. The Bills are unfavored.
Wow.
So with the sloppy offense that the Browns have, and the surprisingly good defense that the Bills have had this year, to me it seems dumb not to bet on the Bills. Josh Allen is not as bad as everybody thinks he is. Devin Singletary can actually run the football.
Fantasy blessings.
And Cleveland kicks field goals.
That they do.
You're not going to win games kicking field goals. And all these field goals are 30 or 20 yarders, which means you're getting right close, but you can't finish.
Yeah, and I mean, last year the Bills had a pretty decent defense, but they just couldn't move the football on offense. And it was interesting this year. I saw in the preseason they brought something like 10, and again, this is not a for sure fact, they brought somewhere around 10 new offensive linemen into training camp and just basically had a free-for-all because their offensive line was just so atrocious. And on, playmaking side of the ball, they did draft Devin Singletary. He's a very exciting player.
Very.
They brought in the veteran Frank Gore, and they have guys... the tank. Such a
Frank
tank. And they got, John Brown and Cole Beasley just getting open. I think if you add playmakers around Josh Allen, with the mobility that he does have, you can at least score a few points. And I think, you're right, against the Browns, that might be all you need.
Right now, it seems like it. And I'm not sure how much he's going to get the ball, if he gets the ball even at all. But something to keep in mind about this game is Kareem Hunt is back.
Ooh.
I picked him up
Ooh.
in fantasy about 6 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and just let him sit on my bench because if he blows up, then I benefit, and if not, well, I'll just drop him. But when you have Nick Chubb, who's doing what Nick Chubb is currently doing, it's kind of hard to give Kareem Hunt the ball because you want to keep it dependable because that's the only. Sorry to say, but it's the only offense that the Cleveland Browns have consistently had.
So are you saying don't start Kareem Hunt in fantasy this week?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Do not start Kareem Hunt in fantasy. You need to see what he's doing first, and you need to see what Freddie Kitchens lets him do.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's going to be a wild game. Another game that I'm kind of interested in, we're going to travel all the way to the NFC West here for a showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And the reason why I'm extremely interested in this game is because the Seahawks are an anomaly. They are 7-2,
Yes.
and they're a team that should, by all rights, not be 7-2. Because they have an MVP candidate by the name of Russell Wilson, and pretty much that's it.
So I'm actually going to disagree with that one.
Okay.
I am on the Seahawks bandwagon right now.
Okay.
Russell Wilson, if Christian McCaffrey does not win MVP, Russell Wilson should.
Yeah.
Hands down, in my opinion. When you have DK Metcalf,
Tyler
Lockett, and they just picked up Josh Gordon, who is like another DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson can give them the ball. You saw in their last game, Russell Wilson's throwing those intentional balls on the back shoulder so they can box that DB out to catch the football. And what you do have a decent running back in Chris Carson. So for me, the biggest weakness in Seattle is their defense. Like, yes, you do have the front seven that they do, but ever since the Legion of Boom broke up, their secondary's been kind of shaky. And no offense, but when you allow 34 points from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's kind of hard when you go up against a better team than Tampa Bay. Because then how is your defense going to fare against them? Like, sure, Russell Wilson can throw 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He's thrown 1 pick all season. But if your defense can't stand up to the other team, then you're not going to win football games. So I am all on Seattle. I do think it's going to be a close game, and I hope that Seattle wins. But for me, it's not a question of is Russell Wilson and their offense can show up. It's their defense.
Yeah, the only thing I will say to that is I'm not a fan, and I know what you're saying about like the outside receivers, Chris Carson, whatever. Just to me, when you take Wilson away from that offense, they become so annoyingly average. It's ridiculous. Like Chris Carson has had fumbling issues in the past.
I agree.
All right, these receivers are great downfield threats.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have the escapability of Russ in the pocket to give them time to get downfield, that whole offense is doomed. And you saw it a couple of years ago with Green Bay.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, when Aaron Rodgers was the only good player on that team, and he carried them oh so close to the playoffs, and they didn't quite make it. Yeah. I think Seattle has a good enough record. They'll probably snag a wild card, but I don't know how deep they're going to go.
Yeah.
Because eventually the magic runs out.
You're right, and like I said, I'm on that bandwagon, so I kind of don't want to believe that right now. But yeah, like Russell Wilson is their offense. Yeah. He makes their receivers better. As much as I hate to say it, you see it in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Like before the season, who is Lazard?
Facts.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers gave him his name.
Yeah,
and
he christened him and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, you see in prior seasons, Aaron Rodgers is complaining about these rookie quarterbacks wide receivers because they don't know like what to do or they don't have that chemistry with him yet, and he gets frustrated. But Aaron Rodgers makes them better, and you see the same thing with Russell Wilson. He gives the receivers the ball where only they can catch it, so it makes the receiver look really good. But all that credit's for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What else do you're looking at this week?
So my next game is the Battle of New York.
Okay.
The Giants are of course favored, but the spread's only at 2.5 points. I'm taking the spread. I don't see why the Giants don't absolutely pummel the Jets.
Like how? No offense to all the Miami fans out there. But how do you lose to Miami?
You lose to Miami, and you're against Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones did look good this past week.
Yeah.
Except he just needs to be able to hang on to the football.
Yeah.
Like, there are those plays where you see the rookie quarterback coming out in him, but I think give him a couple years, Daniel Jones will be a solid quarterback. He might not be, top 5 in the league, but he will be that dependable quarterback that you don't have to question whether he's starting or not.
So kind of like almost like a Nick Foles.
Kind of, except Nick Foles is quite clutch in the playoffs.
Okay, so a non-playoff.
The Giants have to make the playoffs first in order to see if Daniel Jones passes that test.
Yeah.
But for me, when you have, I put the check boxes beside each other. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones. I'm taking Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley, Lev Bell. I'm taking Barkley.
And Lev Bell might not even play. So
yeah. So if the spread's only at 2.5 points right now, that line might move.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, I think the Giants pummel the Jets by at least double-digit points.
For me, the reason why I just look at this game and I laugh is because the Giants, yes, they don't have a lot of talent. Yes, they got a rookie quarterback back there in the pocket, but you know that they're going to play a decent, level-headed game for the most part. The reason why the Jets lost to Miami is because they did some absolutely ridiculous things, just atrocious decision-making by Sam Darnold in the pocket, or by defenders just leaving people open downfield.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't matter how bad your team is, it's in this kind of game where they're both kind of bottom feeder teams, it's more who is going to be the one to do something stupid enough.
Exactly. And looking at this here, their defensive stats, in terms of rushing yards allowed per game, the Jets are 6th. Otherwise, they're both in from anywhere from 25th to top 20, so between 25 and 20 in the league, bottom half of the league. So their defenses are kind of similar. It's their offense. The Jets, yards per game, last. Passing yards, last. Rushing yards, 3rd last. Points per game, 2nd last. 3rd down percentage, last.
Wow.
I don't even have to read the Giants, and you know they're better.
Now, the only thing I will say about those stats is they are slightly skewed by the fact that Darnold was out for so many games, and they have to go with a Luke Falk.
Exactly.
Right? But I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I do think the Jets are better than the stats tell, but I agree with you that the matchup just doesn't seem to favor them in any way.
Yeah. So I think when the line's only at 2.5, you got to take it.
Yeah. All right, I got a line that I want to talk about this week, and that is the Rams-Steelers line of -3.5 for the Rams.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm going to say this is my gambling bet for those who are not faint of heart. The Rams have come under a lot of flack this season.
They have.
Because Jared Goff has looked like
mediocre.
Like discount Alex Smith. I don't know. Okay? He
Yeah.
hasn't looked great. That offense is kind of all over the place. They've lost ridiculous games like the shootout to Tampa. Okay? No offense. But, guys, come on. And then you've got the Steelers, who are somehow 4-4.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, because their defense is actually playing really good. Minka Fitzpatrick has just been flying all around the field.
Good pickup for them.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the Rams to get so fed up with everything. And this is not a call based on stats. This is not a call based on logic. It's a call based on gut instinct that at some point that locker room is just going to lose their mind and just annihilate somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about the poor Steelers here. Mason Rudolph is not a top-tier quarterback by any means.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to rely on their defense to win this game.
Yeah.
If the Rams offense decides it is sick and tired of everybody's nonsense and just starts slinging it, Todd Gurley starts hurling people, it could get messy really quickly.
Oh, for sure.
So if you want to place a little tiny bit of money somewhere, you might want to go -3.5 on the Rams. Right now it's only -105. So it's looking like a pretty good odds.
And James Conner, I believe, is coming off an injury.
Yeah.
Which only helps the Rams.
Yeah. So I don't know. It should be interesting. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning into this week. We tried to keep it fairly simple and straightforward. Just doing a little bit of recap and a little bit of forecast. Hope you liked it. We can get a little slap happy up here sometimes.
A little bit.
But we hope that you appreciate that. our goal is to turn this into a weekly podcast, both video and audio podcast that we put out, and hopefully adding a few more features and sessions in the future. So if you could do us a huge favor and like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, it really helps us. And if you're listening to this on audio, if you could go check us out at the Extra Point on YouTube and giving us a like and subscription. We're just starting out, so we appreciate all the support we can get.
Yep. And follow us on Facebook. We have a The Extra Point page. And don't forget to follow our entire Hot Takes Network on Instagram.
Yeah. And Twitter.
And Twitter. We plan to put out more and more content, and we hope that this stays to be a weekly podcast that you guys will enjoy.
Yeah. HotTakesNetwork.com is your home for all of your amateur sports takes and fun blog articles and other podcasts. So as from me and from Cody and from the entire Hot Takes Network, thanks for tuning in. Ciao.